Chapter 81. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Speaking of which, this dark elf is indeed quite well behaved. He works hard without complaining and doesn't have any evil intentions, so Su Zhan doesn't mind improving his status a little. Flicker, go out and bring him here. Yes, boss, Flashing responded and opened the portal and disappeared. After a moment, the portal opened again, and Flashing appeared in the conference room with a person. Professor Lizard. The person who came was none other than Professor Lizard. Looking at the people in the conference room, Professor Lizard seemed a little nervous, especially toward Su Zhan, who actually felt like he didn't dare to raise his head. Tell me, why did you come to me suddenly? Su Zhan sat on the chair, with his feet casually placed on the table, his hands crossed, looking at Professor Lizard. Professor Lizard hesitated for a long time and whispered, haven't I already followed you? I just thought that maybe there was something I needed to run errands for, so I came here. Oh. I remember it was a while ago, right? If you really think so, why didn't you come here earlier? Su Zhan asked with a smile. Professor Lizard was choked and speechless. Humph, what else could it be? I must be afraid. The skeleton next to him couldn't help but say. She didn't have a good impression of Professor Lizard. After all, Professor Lizard wanted to arrest her before. Su Zhan didn't say anything, just stared at Professor Lizard. Even if Professor Lizard didn't raise his head, he could still feel the eyes on him, which made him feel even more stressed, and even his breathing seemed to become unsmooth. He knew that this should be regarded as a consideration. After hesitating for a long time, Professor Lizard gritted his teeth and said, Yes. I am afraid. I have been hiding since I went back. I am not willing to follow you like this. Especially I found that you didn't come to me, which made me think that maybe you were just scaring me and threatening me, and didn't mean to recruit me. I just saw the news and knew that you killed Dr. Octopus. I have been in contact with him several times, and I was afraid that I would be like him, so I came. After finishing speaking, Professor Lizard seemed to have exhausted all his strength and waited anxiously for Su Zhan to speak. After a long while, Su Zhan said slowly, Since you are here, stay here. There happens to be a team of scientific researchers here and there are also manpower. I have a special potion here that you can study. Ha! Professor Lizard took a deep breath and nodded repeatedly. I won't say anything to warn you. Anyway, you should know what it will be. Su Zhan stood up, clapped his hands and said, This is how things will be arranged for the time being. If anything happens, let Huan contact me. Su Zhan was not worried that Professor Lizard would cause any trouble. Flash, Marrow, and Shenharan had all made great progress during this period, which was enough to deal with Professor Lizard. He was going to Sky's side and asked Fitz how the suit he had made was doing. Chapter 0100 Aegis Academy. Among the layers of clouds, Su Zhan found the shield plane. He didn't need to say hello. Mei, who was flying, had already detected Su Zhan and opened the door directly. When Su Zhan came in, he found other people gathered around the bar, seemingly chatting. Seeing Su Zhan suddenly appear, Sky was naturally the first to pounce. After the two had close contact, Su Zhan became more important to Sky than herself. What are you talking about? It looks like you have a mission. Su Zhan hugged Sky and asked the others with a smile. Yes. Fitz nodded and said, There was an accident at the Shield School. The water in the swimming pool suddenly froze, and a device was found inside. Well, this device was a concept we studied before, but I didn't expect it now. The concept is coming true, so we're going to go investigate. That's it. Su Zhan nodded in response, but he didn't expect that it was such a coincidence that he came. He knew roughly about this incident, and the most important thing was that he seemed to be able to recruit someone back to expand his power this time. By the way, how is the suit I asked you to make last time? Well, it's already done. It's the same style as yours, but without the cape. I think, after all, we have to distinguish you from them. By the way, because I don't know the size, I specially made a few of different sizes. Speaking of this, Fitz was very excited. Su-Jean also wanted to see what it was like, so he followed Fitz to the laboratory. Looking at the uniform that Fitz took out, Su-Jean was very satisfied, patted him on the shoulder and said, "Thanks. It's just a little effort." Fitz lowered his head and said with a smile, "I've put these away." Su-Jean said and received all the uniforms into the system space. Fitz looked at it for a moment, wondering where the uniform was. Su-Jean smiled and blinked, but turned and left without explaining. Shield Academy. Because the swimming pool quickly froze and hurt people, the students in the Shield Academy were still a little worried. After all, the device was obviously placed there intentionally, and it was specifically targeted at those swimmers. "I don't know. Whoever released it does not know who is targeted, which will naturally affect the students' mood and emotions. Because this device was successfully designed by Fitz and Simmons, they were specially invited to give a speech to reassure the students, and also to investigate who did it." Su-Jean, Sky, Gemma, and Simmons came to Shield Academy. Coulson and May had other missions and were not accompanying them. "This is Shield Academy. Doesn't it look no different from an ordinary university?" Sky looked around curiously. Students passed by leisurely, chatting in groups, or sitting under a tree or beside a flower bed. Looking down at the tree. "There is really no difference, except that you must have at least a doctorate to study here, and there is no one with an IQ below double digits." Fitz whispered, "If you continue to study, you should be here too." Sky's IQ is not low, especially her hacking skills. Otherwise, it would be impossible to become a consultant for S.H.I.E.L.D. Just as he was talking, a woman came from a distance. A dark-skinned woman in formal business attire. "You're here. Nice to see you." The woman came over and smiled, extending her hand and shaking hands with them one by one. Simmons said happily, "You are still so beautiful. This is the officer in charge of this case, Agent Weaver." Simmons said it, but it was obvious that Sky and Su-Jean also knew it. "Is there a suspect?" Sky asked curiously. Agent Weaver nodded and said, "Based on the intelligence level required to find that device and develop it, we have narrowed it down to the best 10% of the students, who should be among them." "Can we talk to the injured person?" "Of course, I'll arrange for you to talk to Seth after class." Agent Weaver responded. But now, Fitz, Agent Simmons has to go to the lecture hall to prepare his speech. Suddenly discovered that they are very popular here. Sky and Su-Jean walked behind, watching many students gathering around Fitz and Simmons to say hello, and said with a smile, "After all, they are the top students in S.H.I.E.L.D. Academy. They are going to prepare a speech, and we are walking around. Is this a rare occasion?" Su-Jean said to Sky with a smile. The two were walking in S.H.I.E.L.D. Academy and soon saw a wall full of names. "This is the Wall of Heroes, which records many heroes who died in the line of duty." Su-Jean and Sky looked at each other for a while. Sky noticed that Su-Jean had been staring at a name and couldn't help but take a curious look. Bucky Barnes. Captain America's childhood friend. When Captain America was not Captain America but Steve Rogers, he had already taken the lead in joining the army and later joined the Howling Commandos. While on a mission with Captain America, he fell snowy mountains. Su-Jean gave a brief introduction, but he couldn't help but think about what Captain America would look like when he knew Bucky was still alive and appeared in front of him as the Winter Soldier. Speaking of which, Winter is also one of Su-Jean's goals. His body has been modified by Hydra, and the effect is similar to that of Captain America. He also has a mechanical arm. It can be said that the overall strength is comparable to Captain America. After all, he will be the second-generation Captain America in the future. Of course, he is still controlled by Hydra and has become Hydra's killing machine. Chapter 82. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Is there anything special about him? Sky asked curiously. Su-Jean smiled and shook his head and said, "No, at least, not yet." Now, Sky was a little confused, but Su-Jean had already pulled her away. The two came to the lecture hall. At this time, the lecture hall was full of people. Agent Weaver made an opening introduction on the stage and invited Fitz and Simmons to speak on the stage. Su-Jean and Sky found a place in the front row and looked at the warm applause around them. Su-Jean smiled and glanced at the crowd casually. Soon, he spotted someone, a young boy with short hair, Donnie Gill, looking at him. Su-Jean's lips raised slightly. Papa. Warm applause suddenly sounded, and there was cheering all around. Su-Jean turned his head and looked at Simmons and Fitz on the stage, smiling and nodding. It seemed that the content of the speech just now was pretty good, although Su-Jean didn't even hear what was said. "Oh my God, what happened? Help, come help me." Suddenly someone stood up and shouted in panic. Ice suddenly appeared under his feet, freezing his knees instantly, and it was condensing upwards rapidly. Chapter 0101 Donnie Gill, the sudden change made everyone panic. The man struggled and shouted, but his body was rapidly freezing. In the blink of an eye, his whole body was covered in ice, and he looked like an ice sculpture. The surrounding students fled in panic, and Simmons and Fitz hurried over to help. "Find an area of exposed skin where he needs to inject glucose to raise the body's natural coagulation point," Simmons said as he opened his toolbox. "I'm afraid I need tools." Fitz came to the man, took a look, and said in a deep voice, "There is no way, it has been completely frozen into an ice sculpture, how can there be any exposed skin?" Simmons found the awl and was about to hand it to Fitz, when he suddenly felt that the air around him suddenly became hot. Subconsciously, he raised his head and saw Su-Jean walking over. His hands were wrapped in flames, which was where the heat came from. Simmons and Fitz thought Su-Jean was going to use the flame in his hand to melt the ice, but suddenly they saw a ball of flame flying out of his hand and slowly sticking to the ice. Sizzle, the sound of melting gradually sounded, and soon, the ice in that area had melted. "Is it okay?" Su-Jean asked Simmons. Simmons nodded repeatedly and hurried over to inject glucose. The flame did not disappear, nor did it return to Su-Jean. Instead, it flew under the chair next to him, and then a bang was heard, as if something broke. Sky walked over and took a look. It was the kind of device that could instantly generate ice. Boom! The moment the device shattered, the ice on the man's body also shattered and melted. Hoo. The man who recovered instantly collapsed on the ground, exuding a cold breath, and his face was covered with ice. It's okay. Fitz supported him and said comfortingly. The man looked shocked, breathing heavily. Thunderous applause rang out because the students around them were so excited when they saw that they had successfully rescued people that they didn't know how to express themselves. They could only express their respect with applause. "What's your name?" Su-Jean asked the man. Donnie. "Do you know who wants to kill you?" "No. Don't know." Su-Jean nodded and did not ask further questions. At this time, someone nearby sent Donnie back to rest. Staring at his figure disappearing, Su-Jean's eyes contained profound meaning. "Do you know anything? I mean, can you foresee anything?" Simmons walked over and asked Su-Jean. Su-Jean thought for a while and shook his head. He doesn't have to have premonitions because he knows what will happen. Of course, the premise is that things develop as he remembers, so he doesn't intend to interfere. Simmons was a little disappointed. Su-Jean's premonitions had helped complete the task several times, making her somewhat dependent on him. What's more, this happened in Shield Academy and was about her fellow students. "What should we do now?" Simmons asked, somewhat clueless. "Let's ask other students and teachers, maybe we can find out something." It can only be that everyone separated to inquire about the news. Not long after, Su-Jean and Fitz came to the dormitory. In fact, Fitz could have come here alone to ask, but Su-Jean followed him deliberately to ensure that the plot could proceed smoothly. Seeing Fitz enter Donnie's room, Su-Jean breathed a sigh of relief. Donnie Gill, a genius with an IQ of 190, is only 18 years old this year. Although he is not as good as Fitz and Simmons, he is already very powerful. The academy has already planned. He graduated early and went to work in a special location, Sandbox. Because of his high IQ and being incompatible with the people around him, he developed a withdrawn character since childhood. Even when he came to SHIELD Academy, he was still withdrawn and didn't make many friends. It is precisely because of this personality that he was taken advantage of by a classmate named Seth. This Seth was the person who was injured in the swimming pool before. Whether he was injured in the swimming pool or Donnie was frozen just now, it was actually just a part of the plan. The energy of that small device was not very strong and danger could be avoided as long as it was operated well. The purpose of doing this is because Seth has an investor. He needs to build a more powerful large-scale device to sell money, but the energy problem has never been solved, so he thought of Fitz, who is said to be the smartest in SHIELD Academy. Students. Because this device contains the results of Fitz's design, Fitz will definitely be sent over to investigate if something goes wrong, because Fitz is actually very similar to Donnie. They are both very intelligent people but very lonely and have few friends. With the help of this psycho has access to Fitz and uses him to solve the energy problem, and because of the reason why they were injured before, they were naturally cleared of any suspicion. Now that Fitz has entered, he will probably develop according to this situation. After Su Zhan asked a few students, he entered an empty dormitory and quietly paid attention to the movements in Downey's dormitory. After a while, Su Zhan heard the noise, opened the door slightly and took a look, and found that Seth had entered Donnie's room. Huh. Fitz hasn't left yet, why is he here? Shouldn't he come after Fitz leaves? Then we solve the energy problem together, and Fitz happens to find him, knocks him out, and then exposes his identity. Su Zhan was a little surprised. There seemed to be a slight discrepancy in things. Half a day later, Su Zhan saw Seth and Donnie leaving with something. After they disappeared, Su Zhan opened the door and went to Donnie's room. Sure enough, Fitz was lying on the floor. Su Zhan took a look and breathed a sigh of relief, but was knocked unconscious. Su Zhan helped Fitz up and informed the others. Su Zhan really felt a little sorry for Fitz. After all, Fitz was kind to him and made him so many uniforms. But there was no way, if he didn't take this blow, Donnie wouldn't become the Donnie Su Zhan wanted. Seth and Downey ran away with the machine, and SHIELD is looking for their whereabouts. Chapter 83. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Su Zhan and others returned to the plane and met up with Coulson and May, who had just returned from the mission. They already knew what happened. After Fitz woke up, he seemed a little annoyed, but strangely, he was not angry at Donnie. Perhaps it was because of similar personalities. He could understand Donnie's mood, and he was more angry than him. See, the guy who induced Downey. This device is dangerous, we must find them as soon as possible. Coulson said seriously. Su Zhan thought for a while and said, I'll go. Do you know where they are? I didn't know before, but now. I know. Su Zhan said with a smile. Chapter 0102 Blizzard Downey. While the people from SHIELD were looking around, Seth and Downey were hiding in the parking lot north of SHIELD Academy. It was semi-abandoned and no one would come here at ordinary times. There is a device that can create ice on the back of a pickup truck. No. To be precise, after modification, this large device can not only create ice, but can also affect the weather. Donnie sat next to the machine, looking a little nervous. Seth is on the phone with his investor. It is worth mentioning that his investor is Ian Quinn, the guy who once captured Dr. Hull's research on gravitational magnetic fields. Because the matter was exposed, Seth called and hoped that Quinn could send a helicopter to pick them up. After all, people from SHIELD were looking for them, but Quinn's request was very simple. As long as the device proved to be useful, he would send one right away. Someone go pick them up. Of course, this was a lie to them. After hanging up the phone, Quinn, who was supposed to pick them up, directly informed the captain, turned the plane around and left. Seth encouraged Downey to turn on the machine. Downey was hesitant. After all, it had not been tested and he was not sure what harm it would cause. However, under Seth's encouragement and threats, Downey could only agree and turn on the machine. Not long after the machine was turned on, the weather suddenly turned gloomy. Dark clouds rolled in, the sky was dark, the wind was blowing all around, the air was freezing, and ice roared down hard. Seth and Donnie hid in the car in a panic, and a huge piece of ice roared directly into the car window and cracked it. There was an endless stream of crackling sounds, and it looked like an apocalyptic scene outside. "No, we have to turn off the device," Donnie said solemnly. "You are crazy, don't forget what Mr. Quinn said, he will only give us money and take us away when he sees the effect," Seth shouted. "If we die here, no matter how much money we have, it will be useless." Danny said. Seth was silent, looking at the terrifying scene outside, hurricanes, ice roars. In the end, he nodded in agreement. Although money is important, if you don't have the money to spend it, what's the point of having money? The two people hurriedly ran out and planned to turn off the device, but it was not that easy in this environment. Just when they were about to succeed, a bolt of lightning suddenly struck from the sky and hit the device. Boom. Seth was directly hit by lightning, flew out of the car and fell to the ground. Downey's hand was on the device at the time and was injured, but he was lucky and just hit the side. Looking at the device that had been hacked, Donnie shouted to Seth to get out of here as soon as possible, but he jumped out of the car and came to Seth's side, only to find that he didn't respond at all. At this moment, he seemed to hear something. Subconsciously turning his head, he saw a scene that shocked him. The man fell slowly from the sky, surrounded by countless strong winds. These strong winds seemed to be avoiding him, and they seemed to be controlled by him and did not hurt him at all. "It's you." Downey recognized it. Was it the agent from S.H.I.E.L.D.? "Help him, he's injured," Downey shouted hurriedly. The person coming was none other than Su-Jean. Seeing this scene, especially Downey's hand, Su-Jean smiled knowingly. "Done." Lifting his hands and moving, two balls of energy directly enveloped Donnie and Seth. Su-Jean took them flying up, through the dark clouds in the sky, and returned to S.H.I.E.L.D.'s plane. As soon as they entered the plane, everyone saw Seth, who was injured and unconscious, and hurriedly started to save people. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, he is dead. Donnie didn't expect that Seth would die, and he was extremely sad and angry. Looking at the sad Downey, Su-Jean was already thinking about how to get him. After something like this happened, S.H.I.E.L.D. Academy would definitely not let him stay, and S.H.I.E.L.D. couldn't just let him go. After all, Fitz was injured, and Downey's IQ, ability, plus that device, the level of danger caused, so Downey will definitely be under guard. However, I'm afraid none of them could have imagined that Downey's real threat is not these, but his special abilities, which is also the reason why Su-Jean deliberately maintained the plot, because lightning struck the device, and Downey's hand happened to be on the device. His body structure changed, and he had the ability to change the structure of air material and transform it into ice material, somewhat similar to X-Iceman in Men of Steel, but his ability is not as strong as Iceman because he cannot create ice out of thin air. But even so, this ability is extremely powerful. After all, without his own help, he would have become a more famous villain in the future, Blizzard. Although Blizzard Downey was captured by Su-Jean, and although Fitz and everyone knew that he was taken advantage of because of his personality, he must bear responsibility since it happened. S.H.I.E.L.D. cannot let it go, nor can S.H.I.E.L.D. maybe leave it to yourself. Although it is impossible to ask people directly, it seems that we can only snatch people halfway. However, I am not very suitable to come forward. Professor Lizard, you are really suitable for coming. I will leave this matter to him. Thinking of this, Su-Jean turned around and went to his room, took out his phone and called Shuang Shuang. "Boss. How about Professor Lizard? It's quite honest for now." "That's good, I have something I need him to do." Su-Jean whispered and told his plan. The plan is very simple. Let Flicker and Professor Lizard act together. Professor Lizard will be responsible for robbing people, and Flicker will be responsible for teleportation. Send Downey to the spaceship for a while first, and then you won't have to worry so much after S.H.I.E.L.D. is disintegrated. After all, Su-Jean was planning to poach Coulson and his team, so he had to put on a show of dignity. Coulson had contacted other S.H.I.E.L.D. teams and discussed the handover location. After landing, Downey was taken away directly. When he left, he was in a very low mood. After all, in his opinion, Seth was his only friend, but he killed him. Watching the car escorting Downey leave, Coulson and others turned around and went back. When he passed by Su-Jean, he stopped and hesitated. "There is something I want to tell you first." "Go to your office." Su-Jean noticed that Coulson glanced at Sky quietly. Su-Jean realized that what he was about to say might be related to Sky. I'm afraid, it should be about Sky's life experience. Chapter 0103 Captain America asks for help. You know that Sky has been investigating her parents, right? That when he came to the office, Coulson asked Su-Jean. Chapter 84. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Su-Jean nodded. Sky has been in foster care since she was a child, and was fostered by many families. Her childhood was not happy, so she has always wanted to investigate her life experience and her biological parents. The reason why she became a hacker is also because of this reason. Joining S.H.I.E.L.D. as a consultant is also for this reason. Otherwise she wouldn't be able to become a consultant for S.H.I.E.L.D., and neither would you. Coulson continued. Su-Jean nodded. Me and May went on a mission today to investigate this matter. The result was not very good, at least, not like what Sky investigated, so I am worried that this result will tell her that she will not be able to bear it. You are her boyfriend, so I want to ask your opinion first. Coulson said. Of course Su-Jean knew Sky's life experience and who her biological parents were. It's just that she knows the result, but she doesn't know many details in between. What's more, even if she tells Sky now that she won't be able to see her parents, it will only increase her sadness. It's okay to change some things, but it's better to let things develop naturally. Don't tell her this in advance. Su-Jean shook his head. Coulson nodded and said, that's fine. My base is under construction and will be officially completed in about a month. During this time, I will stay here. Su-Shing said, after all, my days as a S.H.I.E.L.D. consultant are numbered. Speaking of which, Su-Jean has been a consultant to S.H.I.E.L.D. for so long and has really not stayed here for long. This time he can have a good experience. Just as Su-Jean was about to leave Coulson's office, Coulson suddenly received a call. After answering the call, his expression was a little serious. After a moment, he hung up the phone and said to Su-Jean, I just received the news that the car transporting Donnie was stolen by Lizard. The professor attacks and Donnie is taken away by Professor Lizard. Need my help? Su-Jean asked. Coulson shook his head. Let's wait until we find Professor Lizard's whereabouts. I hope Donnie is okay. Yeah. Su-Jean responded, then turned around and went out. After all, Downey is just a nobody now, and S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't attach much importance to him, so Professor Lizard's sudden attack is definitely a sure thing, but, why didn't Flicker report the situation to himself? Just when he thought of this, Su-Jean's phone rang. Hello. Su-Jean answered as he answered the phone. Boss, it's done. It's just that this guy is quite capable. Professor Lizard almost suffered a big loss and is now under control, but I'm afraid he won't stay with peace of mind. Twinkle's tone was a bit gloating. To Professor Lizard, Twinkle and Skeleton had the same hatred, so naturally they didn't have a good impression. You can tell him my identity, and tell him by the way, if you don't want to be imprisoned for the rest of your life, just stay there and I will meet him when I go back. Yes, thought it will be easier to handle with Su-Jean's instructions. Blizzard Donnie is really interesting. He has just gained the ability to make Professor Lizard suffer. If you train him well, he will be a good subordinate. What did Coulson tell you? As soon as Su-Jean returned to the room, Sky came over. It's nothing. I'm looking for someone to build the base. It can be completed in a month, so I will stay during this period. Su-Jean said with a smile. Really? That's great. Sky said happily. So, did you miss me? Su-Jean grabbed Sky and made her sit on his lap, then hugged her and asked. Sky said, of course. Then, how about you come to my room tonight? Su-Jean said with a deliberately low smile. How could Sky not understand what he meant? He didn't say anything, but nodded gently. Night comes, as expected. Sky did not make an oath, but waited until everyone else fell asleep before quietly coming to Su-Jean's room. Not long after, there was a faint sound in the room. Even if the effect of the room is very good, it cannot block the deep longing and love. Don't leave, just sleep here. Everyone knows our relationship anyway. After the fun was over, Sky was getting dressed, and Su-Jean asked softly. Sky shook his head. I'd better go back, it's a bit embarrassing. All right. Su-Jean reluctantly agreed. After Sky left, Su-Jean was still not sleepy due to his excitement, so he simply started swallowing ether particles. He felt sleepy rising, and then he stopped to sleep. When I woke up the next day, I ate with everyone and watched Sky and May learn some close combat skills. Su-Jean also watched for a while. Sky has made rapid progress. It turned out that Sky was just a hacker girl, but now she can already play decently. Would you like to try it? May shouted towards Su-Jean. Su-Jean readily agreed, and just as he was about to leave, he suddenly felt Coulson coming. I'm afraid you have to stop for a moment, Su-Jean, someone is coming to find you. Coulson said. Why do I feel like I'm visiting a prisoner when I hear this? Su-Jean complained to Coulson, and then said to May, I'm going to see who it is, and come here if I can find it. Let's discuss it again when we have the opportunity. Team leader. Su-Jean and Coulson came out and saw that the person looking for them turned out to be Captain America. This surprised him very much. To have Captain America come here to find me, something must have happened, right? But it should be. He hasn't reached the plot of Captain America 2 yet, and he doesn't look like he is wanted by S.H.I.E.L.D. We have encountered a problem. I'm afraid. I have to trouble you. Oh. Seeing the serious expression on Captain America's face, it seemed that the matter was not trivial, but what on earth could have caused him to come specifically to find me? Could it be related to myself? Let's talk on the way. No need to say anything, I understand, let's go. Su-Jean activated his precognition ability and soon knew what happened and why Captain America came to find him. Something happened to Elliot Randolph. In the picture he saw, the Asgardian blacksmith was holding 2 swords, absorbing the power of fear generated by a city, making him extremely powerful and unstoppable. Obviously, I asked him to change the Berserker's cane into a pair of swords, which should have been successful, but I'm afraid he was also dominated by the power of fear. Chapter 010 for the Double Knife of Fear. Captain America and Su-Jean came out and were about to get on the plane he came from, but Su-Jean suddenly waved his hand. In a moment, a ball of energy appeared around Captain America and enveloped him. Just as Captain America was about to speak, he felt his body suddenly fly out. Chapter 85. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. You already know. Captain America couldn't help but feel amazing when he found that although he was flying fast, he didn't feel any discomfort at all. Well, I know where he is. However, I don't know what happened before. Please tell me. Captain America nodded and told what happened. This matter starts from the last time Natasha went on a mission to find the Berserker cane. The mission failed and the Berserker cane fell into Su-Jean's hands. Natasha naturally told the truth after returning. Although Nick Fury was depressed, he had no choice. It was not easy to get the things back in Su-Jean's hands, but there was a Berserker cane, which meant that there were people from Asgard on the Earth. No matter what the reason must be to find him. They had no idea who Elliot Randolph was or where he was. After a lot of trouble, we finally found clues and zeroed in on Elliot Randolph. Then Captain America, Hawkeye, and Black Widow were sent to find Elliot Randolph. As a result, when they arrived, Elliot Randolph had just made the twin swords of fear. Because of their sudden appearance, Elliot Randolph panicked and subconsciously picked up the twin knives of fear. As a result, the twin knives of fear were not the Berserker's staff. They were not on the same level at all. Elliot Randolph might be able to control the Berserker's staff, but he couldn't control it at all. The twin swords of fear were directly controlled by the power of fear. Then, the result now is that Black Widow went to find other reinforcements, Hawkeye stayed there to evacuate the crowd, and Captain America came to him for help. Who arranged this? Su-Jean said casually, if you want to come to me for help, wouldn't it be better for Natasha to come? After all, it's easier for women to persuade men, isn't it? That's what Natasha meant. She said that if you know the situation, you will definitely come to help. Captain America said. Well, forget it was Natasha's wish, it was probably because of Sky that she let Captain America come. Captain America, who did Natasha go to for help? Su-Jean asked next. Call me Steve, I don't know who she contacted. All right. While chatting, we soon arrived at the city where Elliot Randolph was located, Seville. Before he even got close to the city, he could see the commotion below. Even the army was dispatched to evacuate the crowd. At the same time, Su-Jean also felt the strong aura of fear. The entire city avoids the smell of fear. Not bad. Su-Jean couldn't help but sigh. Good. Steve Rogers looked at Su-Jean. In this situation, he actually said it was good. Su-Jean shook his head and did not explain. Of course he would think it was good. The stronger Elliot Randolph is now, the more powerful the twin swords of fear will be. And these twin swords of fear are my own, the stronger the better. As for it, it seems difficult to deal with it now in the hands of Elliot Randolph. Su-Jean didn't worry about this at all. Fear has no effect on him. Su-Jean and Steve Rogers landed slowly. As soon as they landed, someone came over, wearing a battle uniform. He carried a quiver behind his back and held a bow and arrow in his hand. Hawkeye. You are finally here. The people in the city have almost been evacuated, but that guy is getting more and more powerful, and I am starting to have trouble with it. Hawkeye said in a deep voice, and then nodded towards Su-Jean. Greet. Come over now. Steve Rogers asked Su-Jean. Su-Jean didn't say anything. Suddenly, a Quinjet flew over from a distance and landed next to it. Natasha came out of it, smiled when she saw Su-Jean, and then said, I have contacted Tony, he should be there right away. Will come. Are you looking for Tony? Su-Jean asked in a low voice. Natasha shook her head. No, I just called him. You know, this thing is scary. I need to stay away to feel better. Su-Jean nodded. The impact on Natasha from taking the Berserker's cane last time has not subsided. Now that the fear swords can release fear out of thin air and absorb fear without contact, Natasha must be even more uncomfortable. Su-Jean, are you sure? Natasha asked. Su-Jean smiled and said, since you all invited me here, wouldn't it be too embarrassing if you weren't sure? But don't worry, I think, some people should feel that they are more sure, right? Who? This. Su-Jean raised his finger and pointed at the sky, and saw an afterimage flying past. Iron Man, Tony Stark. He didn't pause at all when he arrived, and flew directly in the direction of Elliot Randolph. Guys, I'm going to see what this guy is capable of. Tony, you should come back first. We have arranged a plan. Steve Rogers shouted hurriedly when he saw Tony acting without permission. Unfortunately, Tony didn't pay any attention to it. Let's go too. Su-Jean held Natasha's waist, formed two balls of energy, and brought Steve Rogers and Hawkeye with him. Elliot Randolph's villa was completely different from when Su-Jean came here. The originally luxurious villa had become ruins. In the center of the ruins, Elliot Randolph's figure was at least 3 or 4 times larger. His clothes had been stretched to pieces, revealing his strong muscles. He holds a silver-white tang knife high in his left hand, which is continuously absorbing the power of fear. It can be clearly seen that as more fear power is absorbed, the silver-white blade gradually turns black. The knife in his right hand was completely black, like ink. One absorbs and one releases. Hey, are you the one who interrupted my party? I have to deal with you right away. After all, I can't keep the beauties waiting. Iron Man flew over Elliot Randolph and said. Immediately afterwards, the armor on his body suddenly changed, and 2 missile-like things appeared on his shoulders and hit Elliot Randolph directly. Boom. There was a loud noise and an explosion occurred instantly. Iron Man said jokingly, is this solved? It seems that it is not as powerful as imagined. Okay, the greetings are over, I want to go back and continue the party. Ah. Before he finished speaking, he passed. There was a scream. Chapter 0105. Everyone lies down. Idiot. Seeing Iron Man being knocked away suddenly, Su-Jean curled his lips and sneered. Just now, Elliot Randolph suddenly jumped up and appeared directly in front of Iron Man. Iron Man was still thinking that he had won, but he was hit in the back by Elliot Randolph. The huge force directly knocked Iron Man to the ground and flew out. The Iron Man armor had just been slashed. A huge crack appeared. He hit the building next to him and fell limply. Tony, seeing Iron Man flying out, Steve Rogers hurriedly ran in the direction of his fall. After running 2 steps, Steve Rogers felt the strong wind coming from beside him and subconsciously waved his shield to block it. Boom! He felt his arms go numb, and his whole body flew out, sliding on the ground for a long distance before stopping. Whoosh! Hawkeye hurriedly opened his bow and saw the multifunctional arrow coming to Elliot Randolph in the blink of an eye. Elliot Randolph slashed with his sword, but the arrow exploded instantly. Unfortunately, this explosion did not cause any harm to Elliot Randolph at all. Chapter 86. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Strong, too strong. Iron Man lay there motionless, not knowing whether he was alive or dead. Steve Rogers struggled to stand up holding on to his shield. He happened to see Hawkeye running and taking action, but he couldn't do anything to Elliot Randolph. He immediately seized the opportunity and threw out the shield with great force, hitting Elliot Randolph accurately. Elliot Randolph staggered slightly, but Steve Rogers had already rushed over, just in time. Holding the rebounded shield, he approached Elliot Randolph and attacked. Bang bang! There was an endless stream of collisions and blows. Natasha ran to Tony's side at this time and found that Tony's condition was not optimistic. The back of the steel suit was cut directly, exposing Tony's body. It seemed that there were no wounds, but Tony fainted. I'm afraid this steel suit is scrapped. Natasha frowned and helped Tony open the helmet, trying to wake him up. Boom! There was a loud bang, and Steve Rogers hit the wall next to Natasha, grunting in embarrassment. Natasha was about to speak when she suddenly noticed another person flying over, Hawkeye. Damn it, what the hell is this guy? How can he be so strong? Hawkeye grinned and said with a wry smile, moreover, I felt that I started to be afraid when I faced him, and my hands started to shake. Su-Jean, why don't you take action? Steve Rogers' situation wasn't much better. They were locked in a tough battle with no hope of victory. Seeing Su-Jean standing aside with a smile on his face, looking satisfied and appreciative, Steve Rogers was helpless. Hearing the shout, Su-Jean turned his head with a smile and said, No hurry, just wait. What are you waiting for? We are all going to die here. Don't you see that we are no match? Hawkeye shouted depressedly. Isn't it normal that your combat power is so weak that you are not your opponent? Su-Jean originally wanted to say this, but after thinking about it, he decided to forget it and save some face for them. Don't worry, just wait for a while, it'll be here soon. No. It's already here. As Su-Jean finished speaking, a ray of light suddenly appeared in the sky, followed by a teleportation array pattern on the ground. The red cloak swayed, and Thor appeared with Thor's hammer. It turns out it's this guy. Seeing Thor suddenly appear, Steve Rogers and Hawkeye understood what Su-Jean was waiting for. Thor is the god of thunder. He is also an Asgardian and must be stronger than this Elliot Randolph, right? Well, this can be considered an internal matter in Asgard, right? Then let's rest for now. Anyway, we can't help. As soon as Thor arrived, everyone breathed a sigh of relief and relaxed. Su-Jean, you are so uninteresting. Why did you run away without saying hello? After Thor appeared, he didn't take action immediately, but complained to Su-Jean. Su-Jean shrugged. First of all, don't run away, but leave. Secondly, didn't I ask Sif to carry the message for me? We also want to hold a banquet for you. Without you as the protagonist, our banquet will be much boring. Sol complained. Really? How many days will it be held? Su-Jean asked with interest. 7 days. Thor said. 7 days. Is this boring? Su-Jean rolled his eyes angrily. Thor smiled coquettishly, turned to look at Elliot Randolph and said righteously, I have given the order in the name of the God of Thunder. Put down your weapons and follow me back to Immortal Palace. What came back to Saul was 2 words, go to hell. Elliot Randolph roared angrily, and the black knife suddenly struck Thor. Well, it seems you are ready to resist. Thor said something and quickly swung the hammer and hit it. Su-Jean became nervous and looked at him with burning eyes. This is the best time to verify the dual swords of fear. Boom! The sword and hammer collided, and Thor and Elliot Randolph each took a few steps back. Not bad. It can resist Thor's hammer head-on without being damaged. The quality has improved a lot. Su-Jean nodded with satisfaction. Thor fought with Elliot Randolph, the twin swords of fear, Thor's hammer, thunder and lightning, fear. The two fought fiercely, and the building next to them was severely damaged. Roar! Elliot Randolph suddenly roared, and the silver knife suddenly emitted a powerful energy. In an instant, countless auras surged from all directions and poured into the silver knife. The blade of the silver knife quickly turned black, fear. This is fear energy. Su-Jean turned around and saw that Steve Rogers, Hawkeye, Natasha, and even Tony, who had fainted, had fear energy floating on their bodies, and their expressions looked very scared, panicked, and their eyes the fear lingering in her heart lingered. Natasha huddled up and trembled slightly, muttering something incoherently like a lost eagle-eye. Steve Rogers is doing better and seems to be sane, but struggling to hold on. Is this the power of the twin swords of fear? This simple and crude way of absorption is really, a bit incomprehensible. Boom! There was a loud noise, and the God of Thunder flew all the way to his side from a distance, lying on the ground in agony. Thor's hammer had already been released and fell aside. Well, even this slightly arrogant God of Thunder can't handle it. Looking at Thor's appearance, Su-Jean was even more satisfied. Chapter 0106 Not even the God of Thunder. Ahem, how is this possible? Thor couldn't believe it. His majestic Thor couldn't defeat a berserker soldier. Even, when he looked down at the wounds on his body, he actually felt a sense of fear. How can this be? I am Thor, the God of Thunder. Thor couldn't accept that he could be afraid. This was simply a humiliation for him. He struggled to get up and raised his hand, and Mjolnir flew back to his hand, holding the hammer high. The sizzling sound of electricity suddenly came to mind, and one could clearly see that Thor's hammer was gathering the power of thunder and lightning. Chapter 87. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Is this going to be a bigger move? Thor's ultimate move is no joke. Su-Jean is not worried about himself, but he is also worried about Natasha being implicated. As for Elliot Randolph, if even Thor's ultimate move can't deal with him, then, he can take action himself. Su-Jean instantly appeared next to Natasha. Natasha felt Su-Jean's familiar aura and hugged him like a koala without thinking. Su-Jean hugged Natasha, then flew Steve Rogers and Hawkeye up to the roof upstairs and put them down. In the sky, there are dark clouds. The roar of thunder and lightning was deafening. Su-Jean patted Natasha's hand and said, My dear, let go of me first. I have to go down and do business. No. Natasha shook her head and refused. At this time, Su-Jean discovered that no fear energy was transmitted from Steve Rogers and Hawkeye, who were wrapped in energy. It seems that the energy of the light ring should be able to block the double swords of fear and absorb fear. Su-Jean General Natasha's body was also enveloped in energy, and then she said soothingly, Good boy, let me go. I won't leave. I'll come back when I finish the matter. Perhaps because of the energy shield, Natasha gradually regained some sense and reluctantly let go of Su-Jean. Su-Jean walked to the edge of the roof and was about to get down when he suddenly heard Steve Rogers say, You must stop him. Don't worry, he took something that doesn't belong to him. Of course I will stop him. After saying that, Su-Jean had already jumped down. At this time, Elliot Randolph slowly closed his hands, and the silver knife and the black knife were stacked together. In an instant, stronger power emerged from his hands and struck Elliot Randolph, who was still a little black. The silver knife also turned like snowflakes at this time. Ho ho ho. Elliot Randolph roared at the top of his lungs, becoming painful and ferocious. His body expanded rapidly and became larger. His already burly body actually grew several times larger at this time, reaching at least nearly 5 or 6 meters. The height is like a hill, in comparison. Thor seemed even smaller. As Elliot Randolph grew older, Saul could feel his fear getting stronger and stronger, as if he was being suppressed by something, making him feel extremely dull. He knew that he could not delay any longer. Went down, he shouted loudly and swung Mjolnir at Elliot Randolph. At that moment, dazzling thunder and lightning shook the glass of the surrounding buildings, shattering, and sparks flying. Roar! Elliot Randolph seemed to have lost his mind at this time. He waved his 2 swords with both hands and slashed through the void. Boom! The 2 forces collided, and then a roar was heard. The building next to him was shaken and collapsed. The strong air flow blew Su Zhan around, and the power of thunder and lightning in the air flow made a tingling sound. Depend on, Su Zhan didn't expect it to be so strong. Seeing that the building behind him had collapsed, he instantly released the energy of the light ring and dragged Natasha and the 3 people up on the roof, suspended in the air. Su Zhan looked down. Well, there's a lot of smoke, nothing can be seen except for ruins. I don't know who won and who lost. After finding a fairly flat place to put them down, Su Zhan walked towards the center of the battlefield, waving his hands as he walked, using tornadoes to disperse the smoke. After a moment, he saw Thor. Thor's armor was in ruins, and he lay on the ground in disgrace. Not far away, a huge impression gradually emerged. Elliot Randolph also looked a little embarrassed and had some wounds on his body, but it was obvious that he was in much better condition than Thor. Ultimate move versus ultimate move actually won. Damn, isn't the power of the twin swords of fear too strong? Elliot Randolph became so powerful that he even won a head-on fight with Thor. This is even when Elliot Randolph's physical fitness is slightly poor. If he has strong physical fitness, he can withstand more force. Then he can definitely win against Thor. Well, even if the current Thor's strength has not reached its peak, it is still exaggerated. Roar! Elliot Randolph seemed to have discovered Su Zhan, roared, and rushed towards Su Zhan. If you want to fight with me, are you crazy? Su Zhan sneered, and the energy of the etheric lamp ring suddenly emitted, and instantly turned into a huge rope, which instantly entangled Elliot Randolph's legs, tripping him to the ground. Elliot Randolph tried to break free from the rope but failed. He roared angrily and swung his knife to slash, but at this time, his hands were suddenly cuffed to the ground. Su Zhan walked over slowly, jumped slightly, and jumped onto Elliot Randolph. Looking at Elliot Randolph, who was completely unrecognizable to his original appearance, Su Zhan said calmly, "Your skills are indeed good. I am very satisfied with these 2 swords of fear. Now, they can be returned to their original owners." Got it. After saying that, Su Zhan reached out and grabbed the black knife, releasing the fearful black knife. Elliot Randolph held on tightly and refused to let go. Su Zhan raised his foot and kicked his wrist hard several times. At the same time, the extremis virus activated and turned into magma. The scorching high temperature corroded the body. Elliot Randolph's wrist, he screamed and let go of the black knife within a few moments. When Su Zhan held the black knife, his first feeling was that the weight was right, it was easy to hold, and it felt very perfect. Looking down at Elliot Randolph, he seemed to have slumped after losing the black knife, and his body began to change, gradually shrinking. After a while, he had returned to normal and his original appearance. "Don't take the knife, it's very dangerous." Thor happened to struggle to get up at this time, saw Su Zhan picking up the black knife, and shouted hurriedly, but before he finished speaking, he realized that Su Zhan seemed to be okay. Chapter 0107 The property returns to its original owner. When Su Zhan heard the voice, he glanced at Thor and smiled softly when he saw his dumbfounded look. Then his eyes shifted to the silver knife. Bend down, reach out. He easily picked up the silver knife from Elliot Randolph's hand, a silver sword in the left hand and a black sword in the right hand. With the 2 swords in hand, Su Zhan instantly felt as if a surging power was pouring into his body. At that moment, a voice seemed to appear in his head, urging him to destroy everything in front of him. Are you okay? Sol dragged his body over and asked Su-Jean tentatively. Su-Jean ignored it. He lowered his head and his arms were shaking, and something seemed wrong. Stop him quickly, don't let him hold the knife. At this time, Hawkeye, Steve Rogers, and Natasha came over. Seeing this situation, Steve Rogers hurriedly shouted to Thor. He knew that this knife was magical. This was how Elliot Randolph was controlled and turned into a monster. Hearing Steve Rogers' reminder, Thor summoned Mjolnir and quickly threw it toward Su-Jean. Thor's hammer slammed into Su-Jean with a whoosh, but Su-Jean, who had been lowering his head, suddenly took action. Chapter 88. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. The black knife waved lightly, there was a thud, Thor's hammer was actually blown away and passed through several buildings. He didn't know where it went, slashing away Thor's hammer lightly. Su-Jean slowly raised his head, his face expressionless, his eyes cold, and the ether uniform appeared on his body. No, I'm afraid he's been controlled. What should we do? One Elliot Randolph is already so difficult to deal with. He almost wiped out the whole army. Now it's become a Soviet war. How can we fight this? Steve Jeff Rogers shouted in despair. He is Captain America, he is the unyielding American spirit, but now, he is also beginning to despair. If you can't fight, you will die. Hawkeye said cynically. He was completely desperate now. The air of despair permeated the air. Su-Jean's cold expression suddenly changed, and he said with a smile, at this time, should I say that no one in heaven can save you? As soon as these words came out, everyone was stunned. Are you okay? Steve Rogers asked blankly. Isn't this obvious? Su-Jean shrugged and waved his swords casually. This is my thing. If something happens to me if I use my own thing, wouldn't that make people laugh? Oh my God, you scared us to death. Hawkeye couldn't help complaining. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief and the atmosphere became relaxed. You said this is your thing? Sol asked curiously. I clearly feel that there seems to be magic from our fairy palace in it. Well, this thing is modified from the Berserker's cane, and some small things I got are added to it. It looks pretty powerful. Su-Jean said with satisfaction, and happened to see Elliot Lawn waking up. Dolph. Your craftsmanship is good, I am very satisfied with the twin swords of fear. Elliot Randolph subconsciously dodged a little. He was now full of fear of these terrifying swords. Oh my God, don't let me see it. It's horrible. Seeing how scared he was, Su-Jean didn't scare him intentionally. How are you feeling? It's terrible, like it's been hollowed out of my body, Elliot Randolph said, shaking his head. Su-Jean, are you sure there will be no problem? Sol asked a little worriedly. Of course. Su-Jean said affirmatively. That's good. I found that you are really a magical person. The ether particles have no effect on you, and this knife has no effect on you. I just hope that you don't use this knife easily. It's too scary. Thor shook his head. Then he looked at Elliot Randolph. You, follow me back to the Immortal Palace. No. I don't want to go back. Elliot Randolph was a little annoyed. He had been hiding for so long but he didn't expect to be discovered. Su-Jean, you promised me that I would help you build a pair of swords, and you would protect me from letting anyone take me away. You won't break your promise, right? For the sake of satisfying you with this damn sword. Help. Thor didn't expect that there was such a condition between him and Su-Jean. He looked at Su-Jean and said, he is an Asgardian. According to the rules, he should return to Asgard. What's more, this time, although he was controlled, but after all, he destroyed this city and must return to Asgard to accept punishment. Elliot Randolph and Sol both looked at Su-Jean. Su-Jean thought for a while, shook his head at Sol and said, I'm sorry, I can't let you take him away. I promised him and I don't want to break my promise. This is our Asgardian rule. Thor said. But it's not my rule. If you must take him away, that's fine. Su-Jean slowly raised his hand, and Thor instantly became alert. You're not going to take action, are you? We are friends, and you are the hero of Asgard. Thor now felt the same as Elliot Randolph when he saw the twin swords of fear. His scalp was numb. Since we are friends and you say I am the hero of Asgard, then it is okay to let him stay, right? After all, he is helping me. What's more, he just likes life on Earth and has been hiding for so long, for many years. He hasn't done anything bad. And if it weren't for him, I'm afraid we wouldn't know about your deeds. Speaking of which, he is still your benefactor in Asgard. Without him, no one would know who you are. Where's the god of thunder? Okay, I will tell my father the truth. He can stay for now. Seeing that Sujan's attitude was so determined and what he said made sense, Saul had no choice but to agree. The most important thing is that it doesn't matter if he doesn't agree. He didn't want to fight with Sujan. Now it's right. Sujan smiled and suddenly took action, stabbing Thor with the silver knife instantly. Thor didn't react at all, nor did he expect Sujan to take action suddenly. When he came to his senses, he felt that the lingering fear in his body seemed to have disappeared. Thank you. Thor thanked Sujan. Sujan smiled and shook his head, then walked over and absorbed all the fear from Steve Rogers, Hawkeye, and Natasha in turn. Great, I finally don't have that damn feeling anymore. I feel much more relaxed now. Hawkeye said with a smile. Natasha smiled brightly at Sujan, and the side effects and effects from last time disappeared. This relaxing feeling was really great. Chapter 0108. You can send me the bill. I want to go back to Asgard to report this matter to my father. If you have time, you are welcome to come to Asgard as a guest. In addition, Sif misses you very much and often asks Heimdall about you. Thor Roa, he said something pointedly, then walked to the distance and shouted towards the sky. Soon, the teleportation array descended from the sky and took Thor away. After Thor left, Elliot Randolph breathed a sigh of relief and thanked Sujan. Buzz buzz, there was a huge mechanical sound, and Sujan looked up and saw that S.H.I.E.L.D.'s aircraft carrier was flying over from a distance. Then a small plane flew down from the aircraft carrier. After Nick Fury came down, he looked around with a serious expression. Who can tell me what happened here? Sujan shrugged, sniffing at Nick Fury's posturing. This mission was arranged by him. How could he not know what happened? Why is there one person missing? Where is Tony? Although Sujan was too lazy to explain, Steve Rogers and the others simply explained what happened. After hearing this, Nick Fury asked, only then did everyone realize that Iron Man was not here? Thinking about how he was injured and unconscious before, and then Thor and Elliot Randolph fought each other with their ultimate moves, and they were all taken to the roof by Sujan, it seemed like he didn't care about Tony. So when the building collapsed later, Sujan only protected them, and they ignored Tony because of the fear of the influence of the power and the fierce fighting situation. Oh my God, Steve Rogers yelled. Damn it, he won't die, right? Hawkeye also shouted, and the two of them hurried to Tony in the ruins. Natasha glanced at Sujan, the meaning in her eyes was obvious. You do this deliberately. Sujan smiled noncommittally, and Natasha could guess from the size of his smile that it was probably intentional. What a stingy man. Natasha thought of Pepper and curled her lips secretly. Nick Fury walked up to Sujan and said, can you hand over those two knives? After all, its existence is too dangerous. If some thoughtful people get it, it may cause big trouble. You didn't wake up. Sujan looked at him and said with a dumbfounded smile, do you think it's possible? Okay, I know it's impossible. I believe you will make good use of this knife. So, where is he? Can you give him to me? Nick Fury never thought of fearing the double knives in the first place. It's just a negotiation technique. His target is Elliot Randolph. Chapter 89. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. He didn't expect that there were Asgardians hiding on the earth, and he didn't expect that he was an excellent blacksmith, or more advanced, a master of weapons manufacturing. Although he did not see the power of the Berserker's cane, he knew the power of the fearful swords. How could someone who could create such a weapon be let go? Why? Su Zhan asked with interest. Nick Fury immediately introduced. He is very dangerous, and he has just destroyed this city, so I have to bring him to S.H.I.E.L.D. for all reasons. You don't understand my question. I'm not asking why you want to arrest him, but why do you think I will agree to you? Don't tell me that you don't know that Thor just left and he can't even take people away from me. Do you think you can? Su Zhan was neither provocative nor arrogant, just as if he was telling a fact. But Nick Fury frowned and wanted to say more, but was interrupted by Su Zhan. There's nothing to worry about. Unless he wants to, I won't let anyone take him away in front of me. Moreover, the reason why you want to take him away is probably not because of the reasons you mentioned, but because you like him. Is it a craftsmanship? So, don't talk so high-sounding. Nick Fury was left speechless. Really speaking, you are also responsible for this disaster. If you hadn't suddenly gone to find him, he wouldn't have picked up the twin swords of fear rashly, nor would he have been controlled by fear. Of course, after all, this city is caused by fear. It was destroyed by 2 swords, so the bill for the construction here can be sent to me later. Although it was definitely a lot of money, and although it didn't matter if Su Zhan didn't pay for it, he was now very satisfied with the dual knives of fear, so he paid the bill happily. Great, it's okay at last. Su Zhan, come and help him. At this time, Steve Rogers suddenly shouted excitedly towards this side. Su Zhan did not go over immediately, but looked at Nick Fury. Helplessly, Nick Fury could only nod and said, okay, I will send you the bill then. Su Zhan smiled and walked over. Elliot Randolph hurriedly followed Su Zhan. He now understood that no one except Su Zhan could protect his safety. Don't look at me. There's nothing I can do. After all, he has so many women, and I'm just one of them. Seeing Nick Fury looking at her, Natasha smiled and shrugged and followed. Tony was lucky. Fortunately, he was wearing a steel suit, so he only looked a little embarrassed and not in danger. After tapping his back with a silver knife and absorbing the fear energy, Su Zhan said, it's over now. Nothing will happen to me anymore, right? Then I'll leave. Steve, do you still remember me? What did you say before? If you need help, remember to come to me for help. Su Zhan said something to Steve, and then the energy enveloped him and Elliot Randolph, floating up quickly, and then disappeared. As for the aftermath, S.H.I.E.L.D. will naturally handle it. What's your plan? Flying slowly in the air, Su Zhan asked the curious Elliot Randolph. Elliot Randolph was silent for a moment and said, can I follow you temporarily? Are you sure? Following me is not a good choice. After all, it may not be so peaceful around me. What's more, haven't you always liked to enjoy life? Once you follow me, I'm afraid it won't be so easy for you to enjoy life again. Su Zhan asked. Elliot Randolph smiled helplessly. By following you, I may just say goodbye to my previous leisurely life, but if I don't follow you, I'm afraid my entire life will be completely goodbye, so I'll just follow you. Okay, but you don't have to stay with me. I'll send you to a place where you can stay temporarily. You can rest assured that no one can take you away by force without my permission. It's good that Elliot Randolph is willing to follow him. It's good to be a logistics provider. It will also be convenient to build equipment in the future. However, Su Zhan didn't want him to follow him all the time, so he planned to send him to the spaceship to settle down first. Chapter 0109 Blacksmith and Blizzard. Boss? Didn't you say you were with S.H.I.E.L.D.? Why are you back? Who is this? When Su Zhan came back with a shirtless and somewhat embarrassed middle-aged man, Huan and others were a little surprised. His name is Elliot Randolph. To put it simply, you can call him a blacksmith. He is an Asgardian and is very good at making weapons. If you need any help in the future, you can ask him for help. He will be one of your own from now on. As for the reason, you can understand it yourself later. By the way, this is the battle uniform I asked you to make for you. It can also be regarded as the standard battle uniform of our alliance. You can choose the right one to wear. Su Zhan briefly introduced Elio Randolph, and then took out the uniform made by Fitz. This thing instantly attracted everyone's attention. I won't go into details about the functions. You can just test it yourself later. Flicker, where is Donnie? You take me to meet him first. Now that he's back, let's take a look at how Downey handles this problem. Flicker handed the battle uniform to Bones and asked Shinharan to take Elliot Randolph to settle down and find some clothes, and then he took Su Zhan to see Downey. It can be seen that Flicker is becoming more and more captain-like. Downey was placed in a special room. This room was originally used to hold enemies on the spaceship. It was made of special materials. There was also some kind of suppressing magnetic field in the room, making it impossible to get out from inside. When Su Zhan entered, Downey was sitting aside, looking not very energetic. Hearing the sound, Downey looked up and was a little excited to see Su Zhan. Why did you bring me here? When can you let me out? Su Zhan smiled and motioned for him to calm down first, and then said slowly, I believe you already know your changes. No matter what the reason is, you have abilities now, and I am very optimistic about your abilities, so I am very optimistic about your abilities. Fei Zhouzhang brought you here. Now, you have two choices. 1. Follow me, join the alliance, and contribute to yourself and the world. 2. I will take away your ability, let you continue to be an ordinary person, and then send you back to S.H.I.E.L.D. to continue to be under S.H.I.E.L.D.'s care. You can choose for yourself. War Alliance. Aren't you from S.H.I.E.L.D.? Downey asked inexplicably. I am an advisor to S.H.I.E.L.D., and only to the team you met. The Alliance is my organization. Those you met before are all my people, Su Zhan explained. His manpower was a little short, and Downey's ability was also good, so Su Zhan planned to recruit him into the Alliance. But if Downey wasn't willing, Su Zhan wouldn't force him and would send him back to S.H.I.E.L.D. after devouring his abilities. Anyway, the hard work will not be in vain. If I join, won't you restrict me any more? Can I quit? Downey asked tentatively. Of course you can quit, I promise I won't kill you. Su Zhan smiled and said confidently, however, I believe that after you understand the Alliance and the world, you will not quit. Then I'll join. Donnie hesitated for a moment, but finally chose to join. He is a smart man. Su Zhan said that quitting would not kill him, but it obviously did not include not taking away his abilities. Therefore, even if you quit, the worst thing you can do is become an ordinary person, which is much better than being locked up here. Then let's go out together. I just asked Fitz to make a suit. You can choose one too. By the way, from now on, your code name will be Blizzard, right? If you think there is anything inappropriate about this suit, you can change it. After all, it's not difficult for you. Su Zhan said with a smile. Now that he was back, Su Zhan didn't leave immediately. Others were studying the battle uniforms, and Su Zhan came to the blacksmith and asked about the twin swords of fear. The silver sword absorbs, and the black sword releases, right? Only by holding both swords at the same time can the strength be enhanced. I didn't feel anything special when I held the black sword before. Su Zhan recalled it and asked. The blacksmith nodded and said, yes, but there is a small difference. During the production process, I found that there is actually room for improvement. As long as suitable materials can be found, they can be improved. In order to prevent this effect from disappearing, I can only make some changes. Only when both swords are used at the same time, the effect of frenzied fighting will be activated, which is to enhance strength. However, the silver sword can absorb fear energy and import it into the black sword. The black sword has the effect of storing fear energy. So, if the battle is not too fierce, the black knife alone should be enough. Is that so? Su Zhan frowned slightly. He still felt that it was more convenient to use two swords at the same time. Not only did he have the effect of crazy fighting, he also preferred to use two swords when fighting. Actually, as long as you don't control it to absorb fear energy, it won't absorb it. Because you won't be affected mentally, you can control it. If it were someone else, like me, I wouldn't be able to control it at all. It dominates me and uses me, not me using it. That's good. Su Zhan was relieved now. It would be too troublesome if he would actively absorb the fear energy every time he used it. It would definitely affect others. It would be great to be able to control it at will. Maybe it could be used as a trump card someday. Use it. After asking about some of the effects and usage of the double knife of fear, Su Zhan left. When he left, he didn't forget to take a look at the situation on the island. Work was already underway, and it seemed to be quite efficient. After leaving the spaceship, Su Zhan did not go back directly to find Sky. He flew to the city on the shore and landed there. Now that he was out, he was going to buy some things before going back. Although there was a lot of food on the spaceship and the taste was very good, Su Zhan was really tired of it. He hadn't eaten Chinese food for a long time. Su Zhan was going to pack some Chinese food back to give Sky and the others some relief. Satisfy your cravings and eat meat. After all, they don't want to be so casual. Although their freedom is not restricted, it is quite troublesome to go back and forth, walking on the street. Su Zhan didn't know where there was a Chinese restaurant nearby. He was about to take out his phone and search online when he heard an exclamation from next to him. That kind of sound is like a fan meeting a celebrity. Su Zhan subconsciously glanced in the direction of the sound, and saw a bunch of people surrounding it, and some were taking pictures with their mobile phones. Although there were many people, Su Zhan could see clearly who caused the sensation. Chapter 90. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. The Thing from the Fantastic Four. Chapter 0110. Lightly abusing the Stone Man. The Fantastic Four are the first superheroes to admit their identities in public. In other words, they never thought about concealing their identities after gaining their abilities. They can be regarded as the most famous superheroes, especially after the Human Torch lost his powers. It can be said that the attention of the news was very high, causing Johnny the Human Torch to not go out for several days, because as soon as he went out, he would be pestered by reporters asking questions. Today, both the Invisible Woman and Mr. Fantastic were not here, and Johnny wanted to eat Chinese food as if he had a seizure again. But he had no choice but to go out for a run. Among the Fantastic Four, Ben is the most low-key and the one who appears in public the least, because he doesn't have the abilities like others while still retaining his original appearance. He already has a low self-esteem and is even more unwilling to show up and attract attention. Because Johnny lost his ability and everyone was trying to enlighten him and coax him, Ben had to go out and buy things himself. Although he was wearing a hat and windbreaker, he was recognized as soon as he came out. At first, they were just ordinary people, asking curious questions to take photos or something, but then reporters ran out of nowhere and surrounded Ben. The microphone next to him hit him with a bang. It made him feel very irritable, but he couldn't say or do anything yet. He just hoped to leave here as soon as possible and leave here as soon as possible after shopping. While walking, Ben suddenly saw a person. A man he was impressed by. Su Zhan. It's him who swallowed up Johnny's ability and made Johnny become as decadent as he is now. It was him. He was the one who made Susan blame herself and go to who knows where. It's him who caused me to be surrounded by these reporters now. That the more Ben thought about it, the angrier he became. He suddenly pushed away the microphone next to him and rushed in the direction of Su Zhan. The reporters were staggered by Ben's actions, but they were not angry. Instead, they were all very excited. Stone Man goes crazy and attacks reporters. This is very good news. This is the integrity of these reporters. Su Zhan, stop! Ben shouted at Su Zhan, who frowned slightly and stopped. At this time, everyone realized that the reason why Ben was going crazy was probably because of the person in front of him. Who is this? Many people curiously speculated, and some even started recording excitedly. This is a rare scene. Boom boom boom, the steps of the Stone Man made the ground tremble, and it even collapsed and cracked. Looking at the Stone Man coming in front of him, Su Zhan looked at ease. His calmness was in sharp contrast to the Stone Man's anger. What's up? Su Zhan asked lightly, which almost made the Stone Man angry. He never expected that Su Zhan's first sentence after seeing him would be to ask if something happened. Don't you know we are enemies? Ben, who originally wanted to say something, had nothing to say now. He raised his fist and hit Su Zhan directly in the face. Ah! People around him screamed, not expecting the stone man to take action, and they were even more worried about Su Zhan. After all, Su Zhan looked like an ordinary person. Click, click, an experienced reporter has taken photos of this moment. However, to everyone's surprise, Su Zhan just jumped back slightly to avoid his fist, frowning and feeling a little displeased. The blow missed, but Ben became even more angry and punched again, preparing to charge over, but this time, his fist was forced to stop just as he was swinging out, and his hand was caught by Su Zhan. Su Zhan then turned around and threw the stone man away. The huge body was at least 1 meter high from the ground and flew straight out. With screams of surprise everywhere, Su Zhan tapped his feet on the ground and rushed out, catching up with the stone man. He raised his right leg in mid-air and slashed down. Boom! The stone man was instantly smashed to the ground, and a huge crater was created in the hard road. The huge air flow spread out, shaking the people around him. Ben felt like his whole body was about to fall apart. He couldn't believe that Su Zhan was so strong. Looking at Su Zhan standing by the pit, he struggled angrily and wanted to get up, but suddenly he saw a huge hammer appearing in his hand. Su Zhan raised his hand and smashed the hammer down. Ben hurriedly put his hands in front of him. Boom! The hammer hit his arms, causing his body to suddenly sink a little. One moment. Su Zhan kept swinging the hammer as if he was playing whack-a-mole. At first, Ben could still resist, but gradually, his arms dropped and he couldn't bear it anymore. After hitting it almost 20 times, Su Zhan stopped and took a look, then put away the hammer and turned around and left. Click, click, click. Su Zhan was dazzled by the flashing lights, and everyone around him looked at him in shock, as if they couldn't believe that he had defeated the stone man so easily. Shaking his head, Su Zhan quickly got into the crowd and disappeared quickly. Ah! Suddenly someone shouted and said excitedly, I know who he is. God, do you remember the person who killed Dr. Octopus? That's him. Isn't he a superhero? Why did he get into a fight with the thing? He looked like he had a grudge. The stone man made the first move. Did you see that? He's so cool. The people around me were very excited when they looked at each other and said something to me. But we didn't forget the stone man. More than 10 people hurriedly lifted the stone man out of the pit. They were panting from exhaustion. It was too heavy. Ben woke up with his eyes squinted, shook his head, and looked at the concerned eyes around him, which made Ben feel slightly better, although he hates these reporters, but, who hates caring? Are you okay? Does it matter? It's okay, thank you. The stone man struggled to stand up. His stone body was very capable of resisting attacks. Since you're fine, can you tell me why you attacked that person just now? Who is he? Are there any grudges between you? A reporter asked hurriedly. All right. The stone man instantly felt that he really thought too much. They would care about him probably because of the news.